You've been told your whole damn life to just be happy. Smile through the bullshit. Be grateful for what you have. Don't complain. And you try. God, you try so fucking hard. You post the right pictures. You say, "I'm fine," when you're not. You fake laugh at work so people don't ask questions. But inside, it's like you're rotting under a fresh coat of paint. Nobody tells you that chasing constant happiness is like running a marathon on broken glass. Every step cuts deeper, and you still don't get there. The truth is, this culture doesn't give a shit about your actual well-being. It just wants you pleasant, presentable, and profitable. And when you can't keep up, it tells you it's your fault. This is not another think positive pep talk. This is me saying, fuck that. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to stop pretending everything is fine. Because maybe that's where real life actually starts.
You don't even realize when it starts. One day, it's just there, this quiet pressure humming in the background of your life. You wake up, grab your phone, and before your brain has time to form a single honest thought, you're already staring at smiles that look effortless, vacations that look endless, and captions that sound like someone cracked the code to the universe. It's not just Instagram influencers selling you this idea. It's the coworker who greets you with, "How's it going?" without giving a single fuck about the answer. It's the Sunday sermon where sadness is framed as a lack of faith. It's the wellness ads in the subway telling you that a new smoothie, a new workout class, or a $40 candle will fix the way you feel inside. We live in a country that treats happiness like a currency. If you don't look like you have it, people assume you're poor in every sense of the word. Your worth is measured not by how deeply you live, but by how brightly you can fake it. The good vibes only culture isn't about making you feel better, it's about making you tolerable, easy to consume, easy to manage. And somewhere along the line, you start wearing the costume too. You put it on for work because no one wants to hear that you're on the verge of burning out. You wear it around your family because you're tired of hearing, "You should be grateful, some people have it worse." You wear it with friends because you don't want to be the heavy one in the group. The cruelest part is how invisible it becomes. You stop even noticing that you're doing it. It's not a lie you tell once in a while. It becomes the version of you that the world knows. And here's the thing, that version doesn't need anything. That version doesn't hurt. That version doesn't have panic attacks at 3 a.m. or stare at the ceiling wondering what the fuck is wrong with them. Happiness has become a job, a performance review. You can fail without ever being told you were in it. You are expected to show up to every space, digital, professional, social, with this consistent, digestible smile. And if you slip, if you dare let the truth leak out, you can feel the air change in the room. People get uncomfortable. They change the subject. They throw a platitude at you like it's a magic fix. Everything happens for a reason, or it could be worse. Let's call that what it really is: emotional laziness. Toxic positivity isn't always intentional cruelty. It's often the result of a culture that has trained people to avoid discomfort like it's a disease. Your pain makes them face their own, so they bury yours. The self-help industry has built a billion-dollar empire on keeping you on this treadmill. They don't actually want you to arrive anywhere. Arrival kills the market. As long as you feel like you're almost there but not quite, you'll keep buying books, courses, supplements, and seminars. The promise is always the same. If you just think a little more positively, manifest a little harder, hustle a little longer, you'll get there. And when you don't, it's not because the system is rigged, it's because you didn't try hard enough. I've seen people lose themselves completely to this pursuit. I've seen mothers in small towns in Ohio hiding their depression behind carefully staged family photos. I've seen 20-somethings in Brooklyn smiling in rooftop selfies knowing they can't make next month's rent. I've seen CEOs in glass offices faking a permanent high while privately drowning in anxiety. It's all the same pattern, the pursuit of happiness morphing into the fear of being caught without it. Because once you admit you're not happy, you risk being labeled unstable, negative, ungrateful. In America, happiness isn't just a feeling, it's a moral obligation. And that's the fucking trap. Real happiness, the kind that shows up quietly on a random Tuesday, doesn't look good on camera. It's not a performance. It's not branded. It's messy, it's fleeting, and it exists right alongside sadness, anger, boredom, and fear. But when the world is telling you that your worth depends on looking happy, the messy, fleeting truth starts to feel like failure. So you keep wearing the costume. And every time you do, you get a little further from yourself. Until one day, you can't even remember the last time you felt something that was yours. Not something you staged, not something you posted, not something you were told to feel, but something raw and unfiltered that came from inside you. This isn't just a cultural quirk, it's a psychological chokehold. Studies show that suppressing negative emotions doesn't just fail to make you happier, it makes you more stressed, more anxious, and more disconnected from the people around you. You can't fake your way into wholeness. You can't plaster over a cracked foundation and expect the house not to collapse. But that's the story we've been sold, and most of us are still buying it, not because we're stupid, but because the alternative, taking the costume off, feels terrifying. What happens if people see the real you and walk away? What happens if the truth is too heavy, too ugly, too complicated for anyone to hold? I'm not here to tell you that ripping it off will be easy. It won't. It's going to piss people off. It's going to make some of them disappear from your life. But here's the thing. The ones who stay, they'll be staying for you. Not for the mask, not for the brand, for the messy, complicated, sometimes miserable, sometimes joyful human you actually are. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the goal isn't to be happy all the time, but to stop performing like you are. Because the more we play along with this cultural theater, the more we rob ourselves of the one thing happiness was supposed to give us in the first place: the freedom to just be.
There's a cost keeping the mask on, and it's not just emotional, it's physical. Your body feels it. Your muscles remember the strain of holding a fake grin for hours. Your chest remembers the tightness from swallowing words you were desperate to say. Your nervous system stays in a constant low-level panic because deep down, you know you're lying to everyone, including yourself. This is the shadow side of America's obsession with happiness. Nobody talks about it because it's messy and it's ugly, but let's drag it into the light. When you suppress what you actually feel, sadness, anger, loneliness, disappointment, you're not just avoiding discomfort. You're cutting yourself off from parts of you that are essential for survival. Those so-called negative emotions are signals. They tell you when something's wrong. They tell you when you've been hurt. They tell you when you need to get out of a situation before it destroys you. But toxic positivity teaches you to hit mute every single time they show up. And the thing about muting emotions is that they don't actually disappear. They rot. They sink deeper. They ferment. And then they come out sideways. In rage you can't control, in drinking you can't stop, in insomnia that laughs in your face at 3 a.m. You start snapping at people you love. You start feeling numb in moments that should matter. You lose the ability to tell the difference between real peace and total disconnection. We've all heard those phrases meant to keep us in line. Everything happens for a reason. It could be worse. Don't dwell on the negative. They sound like kindness, but they're just emotional duct tape slapped over a wound that needs stitches. They don't help you heal. They just make you bleed in silence. I've been in those rooms where you can feel someone's pain, but they refuse to name it. I've been at those family dinners where everyone's smiling and passing the mashed potatoes while ignoring the elephant that's fucking dancing in the middle of the table. I've sat in offices where people are burning out so badly they're shaking, but the boss still says, "Let's keep the energy high." That's not optimism.
That's denial dressed up in business casual. The worst part is how quickly we internalize the blame. If you're not happy, you're not trying hard enough. You're not praying hard enough. You're not meditating right. You're not reading the right books or listening to the right podcasts or journaling with the right pen on the right kind of paper under the right kind of moonlight. We've turned emotional suffering into a personal failure instead of recognizing it as a part of the human experience. This isn't just bad psychology, it's cruel. It isolates you in the exact moment you need connection the most. Because when you believe your pain is proof that you're defective, you stop talking about it. You hide it. And the silence becomes a prison you can't get out of because you're the one holding the key and refusing to use it. And here's where it gets dangerous. The more we collectively pretend that everything is fine, the harder it becomes for anyone to admit that it's not. We're building a culture where sadness feels like a confession and anger feels like a crime. We're erasing half of the emotional spectrum and then wondering why so many people are walking around half alive. I think about the stories that never get told because of this. The mother who hides her postpartum depression because she doesn't want to be labeled a bad parent. The veteran who hides his PTSD because real men don't cry. The teenager who hides their anxiety because everyone else at school looks like they've got it together. This constant hiding isn't strength, it's slow-motion self-destruction. And toxic positivity has another dark twist. It breeds resentment. When you're drowning and someone throws you a Hallmark quote instead of a life jacket, you start to hate them a little. You start to hate the whole fucking culture that made them think that was enough. You start to believe you're surrounded by people who would rather keep their own comfort than witness your pain. That's when the walls go up. That's when you stop answering texts. That's when you start ghosting events because you can't face another round of pretending. And then they say, "You've changed," or "You're pulling away." But they never see how they helped build the distance by refusing to see you as you really are. And maybe you've been on the other side too. Maybe you've been the one who handed someone a "stay positive" line because you didn't know what else to say. It's not always malicious, sometimes it's fear. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of getting pulled into someone else's pain. Fear that if you open that door, you won't be able to close it again. But here's the truth. We have to open it anyway. Because pretending isn't working. The rates of depression, anxiety, and burnout in the US are climbing as more our Instagram feeds get shinier. We're medicating ourselves at record levels, and still, we're exhausted. This isn't a coincidence. This is the cost of treating happiness like a full-time performance and emotions like liabilities. If you've been feeling like something's off, like you're missing something you can't name, maybe it's because you've been living in half light. Maybe you've been told for so long to focus on the positive that you've forgotten how to stand in the dark and actually let your eyes adjust. I'm not saying we should all wallow in misery. I'm saying we have to make room for the full fucking truth. Because the truth, messy, contradictory, and uncomfortable, is the only place real healing starts. And if that makes people squirm, so be it. We've got to stop using happiness as a weapon. We've got to stop policing emotions like there's a right and wrong way to be human. Because the moment we do that, we strip life down to a half version of itself. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of living halfway. This is the shadow side. And if you've been here, in the quiet, exhausting hell of holding yourself together for everyone else's benefit, you know exactly how heavy it is. But there's something you need to hear. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not too much. You're just human in a culture that keeps telling you to be something else. And maybe the most radical thing you can do in a world obsessed with constant happiness is to stop pretending you have it.
There's this strange thing that happens when you finally admit you're not happy and you stop trying to force it. At first, it feels like collapse, like you failed some invisible test that everyone else passed. But if you can sit in that space long enough, something shifts. You start to notice emotions you've been shoving into the basement for years. Not just the obvious ones like sadness and anger, but the quieter, more complicated feelings. Regret, longing, disappointment, boredom. We've been told our whole lives to sort emotions into two buckets, good and bad. Happiness, joy, excitement go in the good bucket. Sadness, fear, frustration go in the bad bucket. And then we're told to dump the bad bucket out like it's toxic waste. But emotions aren't garbage, they're data. Every single one of them tells you something about yourself, your needs, your boundaries, and your reality. When you stop chasing happiness like it's a finish line, you make space for emotional resilience. That doesn't mean you suddenly feel great about everything. It means you learn how to hold your ground when life punches you in the throat. It means you stop needing every single moment to feel good in order to keep going. And that's where actual freedom lives. There's a power in letting yourself feel what you're feeling without slapping a moral label on it. When you're sad, it doesn't mean you're failing at life. When you're angry, it doesn't mean you're toxic. When you're numb, it doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're human. In a moment, in a body, in a world that is sometimes unbearable. And here's the kicker. Some of the deepest meaning you'll ever find is hiding inside those so-called bad feelings. The heartbreak that wrecked you might have also ripped away the lies you were living under. The failure that embarrassed you might have saved you from years of chasing the wrong thing. The grief that leveled you might have taught you what love actually is. But you can't get those lessons if you're constantly shoving the feelings away in the name of staying positive. You can't grow if you're too busy performing wellness. You can't be real if your only goal is to look fine. I think about it like the ocean. Everyone loves the calm turquoise water you see on vacation postcards. But the real ocean, the one that sustains life, is deep and dark and full of currents that will knock the air out of you. That's your emotional life. If you only skim the surface, you'll never know its full power. And yeah, diving down can be terrifying, but it's also the only way to find what's real. There's this illusion that once you master happiness, you'll be untouchable. Nothing will get to you. You'll just glide through life smiling, unbothered. But that's not strength. That's numbness in a pretty costume. Real strength is being able to sit in your grief and not crumble. It's letting yourself get angry without letting it burn your life down. It's feeling scared, but still making the call, still showing up, still moving. We don't talk enough about impermanence. Everything you feel, the highs, the lows, the flat, gray in-betweens, it all passes. Happiness isn't meant to be permanent, neither is pain. Life is a constant ebb and flow. And if you stop clinging so hard to the highs, the lows stop feeling like death. The self-help machine hates this idea because you can't package it into a neat 10-step plan. You can't monetize, sometimes you're just going to feel like shit and that's okay. But that's the truth. That's the thing nobody wants to say out loud in a world built on selling you the next fix. And maybe the most liberating thing you can realize is that you don't have to keep up with anyone else's version of a good life. You don't have to max their smiles or mirror their milestones. You don't have to measure your emotional life against someone else's Instagram highlight reel. Because here's the dirty little secret. Half of those people aren't as happy as they look anyway. So what if instead of trying to be happy all the time, you aimed for something else? What if you aimed for real, for present, for grounded, for alive? What if you could let a day be awful without making it mean your whole life is ruined? What if you could let a moment be beautiful without needing to trap it forever? This is where you start redefining emotional well-being. Not as a constant high, but as the ability to ride the whole fucking wave without pretending the water is always warm. It's understanding that joy feels sharper when you've known real grief. It's knowing that strength isn't about avoiding the fall, it's about standing back up with dirt still on your face. And here's the thing, when you stop chasing happiness like a paycheck, it has this strange way of finding you on its own. In moments that don't look like much, drinking coffee alone on a rainy morning, hearing a song you forgot you loved, sitting on the floor with someone you trust, saying nothing, just breathing the same air. That's the stuff that stays. That's the happiness that doesn't need to be chased because it was never running from you in the first place. The constant pursuit is what's exhausting you. The belief that you're only doing life right if you're smiling every day is what's breaking you. Let that shit go. Let yourself be a person who feels everything, who rides the tides, who knows that some days will hurt like hell and others will make you forget what pain even feels like. Stop chasing, start living, and trust that the full spectrum, the beautiful, the brutal, the boring, is exactly where you're supposed to be.
So here's where we start to turn the corner, not into a happily ever after, but into something better. Reality you can actually live with. This isn't about rejecting happiness altogether. It's about taking it off the pedestal and putting it back where it belongs, as one part of a much bigger picture. We've been sold this idea that happiness is the goal, the crown jewel, the only metric that matters. But the truth is, life doesn't give a fuck about that script. Life is an unpredictable, messy mix of joy, boredom, loss, connection, failure, and every shade in between. And the more you try to filter out everything that isn't happiness, the more hollow your life becomes. This is where emotional agility comes in. It's not a sexy term, but it's a necessary one. Emotional agility is the skill of feeling your feelings without drowning in them. It's being able to say, "I'm hurt," without collapsing into hopelessness, and "I'm happy," without gripping it so tight you crush it. It's moving with your emotions instead of fighting them like they're enemies. And you can start small. Pay attention to what's actually happening inside you before you try to fix it. That's where mindfulness, the real kind, not the Instagrammable kind with candles and perfect latte art, comes in. It's just noticing. No judgment, no rush to spin it into a lesson, no pretending it's fine when it's not. Just, this is what I'm feeling right now. That kind of honesty is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you practice this, the more you start finding meaning in places you never looked before. Not just in the big, glossy moments, but in the quiet ones you used to skim past. The way the air smells after it rains. The relief of unclenching your jaw after holding tension all day. The moment someone sees you, really sees you, without you having to perform for it. You also start to notice the patterns you've been trapped in. The relationships you've kept because you were scared of being alone. The jobs you've stayed in because you were scared of being broke, even though they were already breaking you. The habits you called self-care that were really just distractions. This isn't about tearing your life apart just to prove a point. It's about realizing you have choices that don't require you to be on all the time. And that's the other shift, moving from chasing happiness to building a life with purpose, connection, and moments that feel fucking real. That's not always glamorous. Sometimes it's uncomfortable as hell. It means having conversations that might end relationships. It means turning down opportunities that look good on paper, but feel wrong in your gut. It means being okay with disappointing people who only liked the smiling version of you. When you start living this way, the people who stick around are the ones worth keeping. The friendships deepen because they're based on the truth, not on keeping the vibe light. Your relationships get more solid because they're built on who you are, not on the version you thought they wanted. You stop wasting time impressing strangers and start spending it with the ones who would still be there if you lost everything. And here's the part nobody talks about. Once you stop performing happiness, the happiness you do feel becomes so much sweeter. It's not an obligation anymore. It's not something you have to post to prove you have it. It just happens, and it feels honest. It's laughter that doesn't feel forced. It's relief that doesn't feel like a lie. This is liberation, not because life suddenly gets easier. It doesn't. But because you stop carrying the extra weight of pretending. You stop gaslighting yourself into believing you're okay when you're not. You stop chasing an impossible standard that was designed to keep you running in circles. There's a freedom in being able to say, "I'm not okay," and not have it mean you're failing. There's power in letting a bad day just be a bad day, instead of a referendum on your worth. There's relief in knowing you can feel like shit and still be a good friend, a good parent, a good partner, a good human. And maybe the most radical thing about all of this is how much it pisses off the system. Because when you stop buying into the happiness hustle, you stop buying a lot of other things too. You stop needing the quick fixes, the empty slogans, the products that promise to make you whole. You stop needing validation from people who never bothered to see you in the first place. You become harder to market to because you're no longer desperate to fill a hole with whatever they're selling. So yeah, you might lose some people. You might disappoint the ones who liked you better in costume. You might even scare yourself a little when you hear your own voice saying something raw and unfiltered for the first time. But you'll also start breathing deeper. You'll start sleeping better. You'll start feeling lighter in ways that have nothing to do with happiness and everything to do with honesty. And that's the kind of life worth living. Not because it's always good, but because it's always yours. So fuck the constant smile. Fuck the pressure to keep it light. Fuck the idea that you have to be a walking mood board for other people's comfort. Real freedom isn't smiling through the pain. It's not being afraid to show it. And once you taste that, you won't go back. If this hits you somewhere real, don't just click away and pretend it didn't. Hit subscribe so this conversation doesn't end here. Drop a like if you want more of the stuff people are too afraid to say out loud. This isn't about chasing numbers. It's about building a space where we stop pretending and start telling the fucking truth. If that's the kind of place you want to come back to, you know what to do.